Well, good evening. Um, there's Rocky. I don't know if you can see him very well, but there he is. He's having a sleep at the foot of the bed. Um, I'm going to tell you kind of a funny story tonight about my dad, anyway, and his friends when he was young, back in the 1950s. Back in the 50s, what they used to do is, of course, drinking and driving was a common thing in those days, and that was something they did for fun, basically. They'd drive around in an old car and with the beer or whatever, and they'd get wasted. And anyway, what they used to do is, though, they'd drive around to fill the gas tank. There were all kinds of little stores that had gas pumps in front of them out in the country in those days. And there was generally enough pressure built up there, even when they shut the pump down, you could get a gallon or two out of the pump just because of the pressure that was built up there. There was enough gas in the lines. You get a gallon or two of gas if you put the nozzle in your tank and squeeze the trigger. You get gas, get a little bit of gas anyway, a gallon or two. And they used to drive around to all these stores, and that's how they filled up the gas tank anyway. They'd steal a gallon or two that was in the lines, that would just come out under pressure if you squeeze the nozzle. Anyway, my dad, he bought a 1949 Mercury sedan. He had this 1949 Mercury sedan, and he bought it anyway, and then he and his friends, of course, they had to go drinking in it. That was the thing. They had to go out driving around drinking. So they're out driving around drinking. One of my dad's friends was a fella by the name, well, I don't know what his actual name was, but his nickname was Porky. His last name was Palmer, and everybody called him Porky. So he was called Porky Palmer. And Porky Palmer was strong. He was a big lad, and he was strong. Porky Palmer used to remove engines from cars. He'd just wrap his arms around the engine and heft it out of the car. That's how strong he was. Anyway, Porky was with them. And he factors into the story anyway. It was kind of funny what happened. Anyway, they're driving along on some back road in the middle of nowhere, and they got a flat tire, which, again, was a common thing in the old days, Now, my dad had just got this car, and he mustn't have checked very closely to make sure all the equipment had come with it, because when they opened the trunk, there was a spare tire and a lug wrench, but there was no jack. So they had no way to heft the car up off the ground to change the tire, Well, they enlisted Porky Palmer to be the jack, because Porky was wicked strong, and Porky just went around the back of the car there. He hefted the arse end of the car up by the bumper, got it up off the ground enough that they were able to remove the flat tire, and then they were putting the new tire on. And it was taking a little while, though, and anyway, after about 10 minutes of standing there holding the back end of a 1949 Mercury sedan up so that they could change the tire, Porky got a little impatient, and he yelled at them. He said, "Hey, are you guys just about finished there?" He said, "This GD car's getting heavy." And they all had a good laugh over that anyway. The car was getting heavy. After 10 minutes standing there holding it, he was beginning to feel the weight of it, Anyway, that's just kind of a funny story, anyway, that I remember my dad telling me. My dad didn't talk about the past very much, really. But occasionally he would. If he was in the right mood, he would, So I did hear a few stories from him over the years about things like that.